right, so these are 1.8 part 1 notes. So let's look at the first one up top. When we solve absolute value equations, what does the absolute value do to the number on the inside? Turns it positive. So if I had the absolute value of -5, what would that be equal to? Positive 5. It turns it positive. What if I had the absolute value of positive 5? What's that equal to? Positive 5 again. Absolute value turns whatever's on the inside to positive. So that means inside here, this could either be equal to 3, like we have, or it could be equal to -3, because whatever is on the inside of my absolute value bars, it turns it positive. So if this was equal to -3, it'd turn it to be positive 3 to make the equation true. So anytime we have an absolute value equation, we always want to isolate the absolute value, and then we set it equal to the positive number and the negative number. So if I have 2x minus 5 is equal to -3, and 2x minus 5 is equal to positive 3. So we just set up 2 separate equations and then solve them separately. So we're going to have 2 answers for x, most likely. So in 2x minus 5 is equal to -3, what would I do to solve for x? Add 5. Great job, guys. So 2x is equal to 2, then what? Bless you. Divide by 2. So what does x equal? 1. So that's one of our answers. Then for the next one, we do the same thing. We're going to add 5. So we get 2x is equal to 8. Divide by 2. So what does x equal? 4. On WebAssign, it says write your answers in a comma separated list. So it'd be x is equal to 1 and 4. So this would be how you put your answer in WebAssign. It should already give you the x equals, and then you put your numbers there. So let's look at number 2 down below. So we always want to isolate our absolute value. Here it's already all by itself, so we can just split it up now. So we have 5x is equal to -20, and 5x is equal to positive 20. So we're just going to solve our 2 equations. So what would I do to solve for x? Divide by 5, so what does x equal? -4. And then in the second one, what do I do to solve for x? Divide by 5 again. So x is equal to positive 4. So those would be our 2 answers. Let's look at 3. My absolute value is already all by itself, so now I can just split it up into 2 equations. I have -3x is equal to -10, and -3x is equal to positive 10. We just solved both of these. What would I do to solve for x? Divide by -3. So x is equal to, what's -10 divided by -3? 10 over 3. A negative divided by a negative turns positive, so that would be one of our answers. And then in the second one, we do the same thing. Divide by -3. So x is equal to -10 over 3. So that would be our other answer. So our first step is to always isolate the absolute value. We want to get that all by itself on one side of the equation. So what would I have to do first here? Bless you. Subtract 3. We need to get the absolute value all by itself. So we have 5 times the absolute value of x is equal to 25. Then what? Divide by 5. So before we split it up, we have to isolate our absolute value. So now we have the absolute value of x is equal to 5. What do I do next? Now I split it into my 2 equations. So x is equal to 5, and what else is x equal to? -5. So these would be our 2 answers here. Here we just have x inside the absolute value, so we don't have to do anything else after we split it to solve. All right, let's do some more. Let's take a look at number 8. What should I do first for number 8? Move the 4 over. We want to isolate our absolute values, so move everything else to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 4 to move it over. So we have the negative absolute value of 3x plus 6 is equal to negative 3. What do we do next? Is my absolute value all by itself yet? I have to divide each side by negative 1 to get rid of the negative there. So I'm moving it to the other side, so that changes it to positive 3. What would I do next? Make it 2 equations. So 3x plus 6 is equal to positive 3. What else is it equal to? Negative 3. So 3x plus 6 is equal to negative 3. So now we just solve each equation. What should I do first to solve the one on the left? Subtract 6. 3x is equal to negative 3. What else do we do? Divide by 3. So x is equal to negative 1. Let's do the same thing on the other side. We're going to subtract 6. So 3x is equal to negative 9. Then what do we do? Divide by 3, so what does x equal? Negative 3. So these are our 2 answers. Let's do number 9 next. What should we do first? Let's subtract the 6. We want to isolate our absolute value, so moving everything over. So 3 times the absolute value of x plus 5 is equal to 9. What else? Divide both sides by 3. So dividing by 3 on the left just cancels out with the 3. So I have the absolute value of x plus 5 is equal to 3. What do I do next? Separate the equation. So I have x plus 5 is equal to 3. And what else? And to negative 3. So what would I do to solve for x? Subtract 5. So x is equal to negative 2. And then again, with my other equation, I subtract 5. So what does x equal? Negative 8. Is there a way that I could check my work to see if I'm right? Make sure I did the math right? I could plug them back into x. I could plug them both into x, and your equation will make sense. So you can always check your work by plugging it back in. Let's look at number 10. What should we do first for number 10? Move the 20 over, so we're going to subtract 20. So the absolute value of 2x minus 4 is equal to negative 5. Let's think about this for a second. What did we say that the absolute value turns our number into? A positive. So if I take the absolute value of something, am I ever going to have it equal a negative? No. So what do you think my answer here is? No solution. So if you get your absolute value equals a negative number, that would mean that it's no solution. Because you can't take the absolute value of something and get it to be a negative. The absolute value always makes it positive. Okay. So for 11, whenever we have an absolute value equals another absolute value, we can get rid of the absolute value signs and just set them equal. So we have x minus 1 equals 3x plus 2. But we also have to account for the negative. If we had x minus 1, whatever it might be, if let's say it equals 5, it could also equal negative 5 and be the same thing. So we also have to make 2 equations here. But one of them we just have to turn negative. So if we have x minus 1 equals 3x plus 2, our other equation has to be x minus 1 equals negative 3x plus 2. So these are 2 equations here. So when you have 2 absolute values, you can set the insides equal to each other, but your other equation has to be the inside equals the other inside but negative. So let's solve the left one first. What should I do to solve for x? In the red equation, what do I do to solve for x? I can add 1 to move it to the right side. I can also subtract 3x. So we want to move the x's to one side, the constants to the other. So I have negative 2x is equal to 3. What else can I do? What else should I do? Divide by negative 2. So x is equal to negative 3 over 2. That is one of our answers. Now let's solve the next equation. What should I do first in the equation on the right? Awesome. We want to distribute the negative first. So we have negative 3x minus 2. Then what do we do? We can add 3x to move it to the right side. And then I'm going to add 3x to move it to the left side and add 1 to move it to the right. So 4x is equal to negative 1. Then what do? Divide by 4. So x is equal to negative 1 over 4. So those would be our two answers here. Let's do number 12. So I can say that the insides are equal to each other. So x plus 3 is equal to 2x plus 1. But I have to come up with two equations. What's my second equation going to be? So x plus 3 equals negative 2x plus 1. So we're making the whole right side negative. So let's solve our first one. What would I do to solve for x? We can subtract 3. And then we can subtract 2x. So we get negative x is equal to negative 2. And then what? So we divide by negative 1. So x is equal to positive 2. Perfect. Let's solve the last one. What should I do first in my equation on the right? Distribute the negative. Do not forget to distribute the negative. A lot of people just like to put the negative out front, but it has to get distributed to both things on the inside. So this would be negative 2x minus 1. Then what do? We can add 2x to move it to the left side and subtract 3 to move our constant to the right. So 3x is equal to negative 4. What's the last step? Divide by 3. So x is equal to negative 4 over 3. So these would be our two answers. So notice for every question we had two answers except for the one that was no solution.